Today I'm going to talk about my favorite game mechanism in A Quiet Place. Now, A Quiet Place is a movie, it's not a game, but the characters in the movie are essentially playing a game, and I want to warn you up front that if you haven't seen this movie, it's a very good movie in my opinion, and I'm not going to spoil anything from the plot, but part of the fun of the movie is seeing how the characters work around a huge constraint in their lives. And so if you don't want to know anything about that, if you go see the movie first, then watch this video. Basically, the idea in A Quiet Place is that there are creatures that will attack you if you make any sound. It's a version of our world, a near future version where this is the way of life, and there are very few people left as a result. The movie follows a family of four who they're trying to survive based on this constraint. They can't make any noise, basically, or very, very limited noise. And essentially, this is a game that they're playing. They are playing the game of not making noise or we die. A high-stakes life and death game. And it got me thinking after the movie, after I was finished being scared out of my mind while watching this movie, was how interesting this was, how they did this, what they did to avoid making sound. They used sign language, they used lights to signal things that you'd normally maybe just shout at each other or use a telephone to say something to each other. They have a quick scene where they show them playing Monopoly and they're using like padded pieces, so the Monopoly pieces don't make any sound. They roll the dice of Monopoly on felt. And just everything they do in their lives. There's tons of examples in the movie of things that they do to avoid making sound. And I thought this is really interesting, and it could make an interesting cooperative game. It's probably one that I won't pursue, and that's why I'm talking about it here. But I'm intrigued by the idea of a cooperative game where you have an app that measures the decibels that you're making in the room where you're actually playing the game. And if you go over a certain decibel of sound, one of your characters dies. You have one of these monsters show up and they take out one of your characters. And so the app could monitor this. I don't actually think, some apps are really complicated. I don't think that would be too complicated to make because I think there's probably, I'm sure an app developer could speak to how complicated that would be. I won't try to guess. But the other hook of this is I'm thinking it would be interesting if the things the players have to do in the game, some of them might require making noise and trying to avoid doing that in the game. For example, maybe some of the tokens that you have to move around are like a bell, like an actual ringing metal bell, and you have to be very careful as you move that bell around in the game so it doesn't make noise. I picture there could be a dexterity element. Maybe you're building a cabin so that to protect yourself from the wilds, the monsters. And as you're building that cabin in the game, you're putting actual wooden pieces or various pieces to actually build that cabin. So you're trying to be very careful about not making sound as you place those pieces. That's as far as I've gone with it so far, but I thought that was an interesting idea in the movie that actually could work in a board game form, to have that hook in a game where players have to be very, very careful about the sound they make. Oh, and actually the obvious thing that I haven't said is it would be very difficult to speak in this game. Like, yes, maybe you could whisper, but you might actually have to start to not use sign language unless you know sign language, but use, gesticulation to convey to other players what you want them to do without making any noise. Reminds me a little bit of Magic Maze, where you're simply not allowed to make noise. But in this game, it just wouldn't be it would be more than just a rule that you have to follow. It would have to, you're actually monitored by this decibel app, and you lose if you make noise. Yeah, just a random concept I thought of. I thought I'd share it with you to see if you have any thoughts about this game of not making noise, whether it's in terms of The Quiet Place or in regards to a board game where your cooperative constraint is that you cannot make a certain amount of noise. Love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Yeah, I look forward to this conversation. Take care.